next Joe Biden, ship or something like that. So thank you for having me here. Thank you guys. Good evening. Special hello to the class of 2021 Texas Tech University Petroleum Engineering seniors, soon to be graduates. My name is Zayman Villegas. I'm currently the president of Fiducia Energy Consulting. I'm a first generation college graduate, and I remember sitting in the same seats that you guys are sitting in about 5 years ago, counting down the days until graduation, anxiously planning out my study time around finals, and being overwhelmed with excitement to finally close that chapter in my life. But I was terrified all at the same time about the road ahead. If you guys are sitting amongst your classmates tonight, you're one step closer. You're one step closer to graduation. You're one step closer to monumental accomplishment that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And you're probably one step closer to Texas Tech Alumni Association calling you and asking you for your hard-earned money. It's an honor and a privilege to stand before you tonight to share with you what little I know about the journey ahead that you guys are soon to embark on. I hope you leave here tonight with some newfound perspective, and it's coming from someone who's learned a lot of hard-earned lessons along the way. So as I thought about what I wanted to share with you tonight, I wanted to make sure I didn't inundate you with a bunch of cliche motivational quotes that might encourage you for a few minutes, but you might not remember tomorrow. As I thought about what I wanted to share, I reminisced on how I felt coming into my senior dinner, what I've implemented in my personal and professional life that's been successful along the way, and what I wish I would have known. So I want each of you to picture two circles. One's a very large outer circle called the circle of concern, and then there's a much smaller inner circle called the circle of influence. The circle of concern consists of things outside of your control, like the weather and politics, other people's opinions, Dr. Heinze's final exam, and so on. The much smaller circle, the inner circle, the circle of influence, are things that you can control, such as your attitude, your education, the skills you learn, your enthusiasm, who you surround yourself with, your habits, your hobbies, and so on. And everything I share with you tonight is going to fall within that inner circle you guys are picturing in your mind. So the first thing I wanted to discuss is entitlement. There is, without a doubt, unequivocally, a stigma or a reputation for as young, wet behind the ears engineers that you guys are going to face as you enter the workforce. The reputation, I'm almost certain, comes from those UT engineers, but you're going to have to overcome it as engineers nevertheless. The sense of entitlement I'm referring to has to do with this huge misconception that you guys are worthy of a certain title or job responsibility or salary or respect or otherwise. That you believe a diploma that says Bachelor of Science, Petroleum Engineering, Texas Tech University, whose ink hasn't even dried yet, demands. The truth is, you'll soon reach a milestone in your life that you've worked extremely hard for, and you most certainly should be proud of it. But please do not let that achievement translate to entitlement. The way I've consistently overcome the assumption that I was another young engineer who thinks they're the smartest one in the room is by always retaining a sense of humility. My belief is that there's a tremendous amount of value to be had if you approach everyone you encounter with respect, with a presumption that you can learn something from them, and remember what Grandma used to say about having 2 ears and 1 mouth. Similarly, if you approach tasks that come up at work that may be outside of your specific set of skills, and you believe that there's no substitute for putting your hands and your eyes on it, you'll be rewarded. Pull up your bootstraps, put your gloves on, go get the job done, and strive to learn something along the way. I believe a large part of what's made me successful since graduating and through the worst downturn we've ever seen amidst the oil price war and the coronavirus was my lack of entitlement. You guys will soon work alongside various walks of life. Some who have a formal traditional education like yourself, and some who have a PhD from the School of Hard Knocks. A dear friend of mine and fellow coworker, Romaldo Hinojosa, broke out with Getty Oil 46 years ago. I think his first job was chasing woodpeckers out of the derrick, but he doesn't have a formal education like you and I do. He actually started off on a roustabout crew. and he eventually worked his way up to the top. We worked together for the first few years out of college, and Romaldo has probably forgotten more now than I'll ever learn. Romaldo, like many others you meet, will all have something to teach you because they've been in the trenches. They've earned their stripes, and believe it or not, they want to share their lessons learned, but you guys have to be willing to listen. Had I epitomized the stereotype of a young engineer I described earlier, I would have missed out on an opportunity to not only form a lifelong friend, but to learn transferable skills that are going to carry well with me throughout the rest of my career. Had I been entitled, I would have missed out. When I graduated, oil was on a downward spiral, moving swiftly away from the $100 a barrel oil environment where a lot of money was being made, a lot of money was being spent, and everyone was kicking their cases up on their desk waiting for their Christmas bonus. A fellow Texas Tech Petroleum engineer, as Dr. Watson mentioned, Tobin Scott, who owns Saguaro Petroleum, gave me an opportunity the day before graduation to be a pumper in Sterling City, America. A lot of friends and family questioned why I would go through 4 years of college and the rigors of petroleum engineering to accept a job that probably most anyone can do. I always saw that pumping job as an opportunity to gain some hands-on, real-world experience. I remember I was running our own 1980 pole rig pulling unit on a couple wells that summer, and after the backup chain on the tongs broke and hit me in the chest and sent me skidding across the location about 15 feet on my butt, I was demoted. And I was demoted to running each jointed tubing out and laying them down and cleaning the threads. And in our genius planning, we thought it'd be a good idea to pull the wells in the heat of the summer. It was easily triple digits, and my coveralls were drenched in this nasty, thick, black, hot oil from running out all those joints of tubing. And we took a water break, and I don't know if it was the onset of heat exhaustion or I was just daydreaming, but I remember for a split second seriously thinking, what the heck am I doing? You know, they go to college, they said, get an engineering degree, they said. You'll love the oil and gas business, they said. And there I am wondering if I should have just gone to grad school, where my only complaint would probably be the long line at Chimmy's. Though I didn't have the luxury of being picky where I worked after school, I would not have traded that summer or any of my time pumping, roustabouting, shooting fluid levels, pulling weeds inside the firewall or otherwise. Because it was some of the most valuable experience I've ever received. Those backbreaking summer days laid the foundation for the career I've built off of ever since. Had I been entitled, I would have missed out. And this is something inside your circle of influence. Next topic I want to discuss surrounds networking. The Merriam-Webster definition, if you Google it, says, networking is the exchange of information or services among individuals, groups, or institutions. And I think the word networking has a lot more meaning to it, has a lot more depth. I don't think networking is simply handing out cards to everyone you run across or rubbing elbows or shaking hands with other oil and gas folk. I think networking is forming meaningful relationships without always having an agenda. I can't count on my fingers and toes how many times I've relied on my network for support, both personally and professionally. I think it's extremely important to establish a network in this industry, develop a good reputation, and don't burn bridges along the way. The oil and gas industry you guys are part of now, and will be very soon, it's extremely small. And just save yourself the heartache and take my word for it. It is. I think it's important to develop healthy relationships with individuals you can trust and count on. Many of you will be relocating to a new city that you may have never been to before. Be sure to take the initiative to attend luncheons, get involved with organizations that afford you the ability to meet new people and get involved with your community. I remember only landing one interview early into the internship hunt my junior year. I was extremely nervous. I knew this would be my last summer to land an internship, and I hoped I could parlay that in a full-time position going into my senior year to not already add to the anticipated stress of graduating. And my interview was with Sandridge out of Oklahoma City, and my interviewer was none other than Mr. Shad Frazier. Which is funny, we had no idea that this would be planned, but it's funny he was in my speech. So I was prepared to answer any question under the sun about Sandridge, as I thought Shad had suggested in his info session. But I was not prepared whatsoever to be asked the questions that really had no right answer. They're more disguised to give the interviewer a sense of how you're going to critically think on your feet. And I absolutely bombed the interview. Needless to say, I wasn't extended the internship. Thanks. Nor did I necessarily deserve it. Though I should have been more prepared, more relaxed, I was so frustrated that Shad asked those ridiculous questions. I truly wanted to send him an email with a set of colorful adjectives. But instead, I sent Shad a handwritten thank you note, and I thanked him for his time, and I thanked him for the opportunity to interview. And I never thought I'd see him again. So fast forward 3.5 years later, and I'm in Brownwood, Texas, volunteering for a church camp, helping set up fireworks for the 4th of July show. And guess who I run into also volunteering at the church camp, also setting up fireworks for the kids? Shad and his wife, Tana, and I laughed about my interview with them. And I learned that my boss at the time, Tobin, and Shad's family were in the middle of negotiating a business deal. I was pretty far removed from the deal. However, I was intimately familiar with how much we had riding on it. And I don't know if leaving a burning brown paper bag on Shad's office doorstep, like I wanted to after my interview, would have jeopardized the deal. But I can say with the utmost certainty that I wouldn't want to do business with someone who behaved that way. So earlier when I said not to always have an agenda, that means to me being genuine, charismatic, professional with whoever you run across, even if you don't see how it'll immediately benefit you. You never know who you're talking to today might be able to assist you in the future. Reach out to the coworker who got laid off and check on them, see how they're doing. Be generous with your time, volunteer graciously. I've met so many wonderful individuals through my involvement with the Midland local nonprofit called Unlock Ministries. They've given me referrals and recommendations, business along my consulting journey. But when I began volunteering, I wasn't doing it for the hopes of making a business deal. I had no agenda. Had I not networked, I would have missed those opportunities and so much more. Who you interact with, how you choose to respond to precarious situations, and how you network are all things within inside your inner circle of influence. So the last topic I want to share with you something tonight is something I've been implementing from a very young age, but really have only consciously, deliberately, with discipline, implementing it since I was sitting where you guys are sitting. And it has to do with mindset. It has to do with the power of positive thinking and creating your own reality. I've always struggled with trying to connect the dots going forward, and as for long as I can remember, I've always longed for stability and certainty and encouraged planning and taking calculated risks, etc. And you would have thought for someone who's so concerned with stability and certainty, I would not have joined the oil and gas business, but here I am. My approach to my professional life and my personal life and everything in between stems from the power of positive thinking and creating your own reality. I promise I wouldn't flood you with cliche quotes, but any speech has to have at least one, and that is, nothing in life is certain. In this business, you most likely will not work in an area where families plan a vacation to. You may not always be surrounded by peers that you think that you might want to invite to your wedding. You most likely will experience a downturn or 2 or 3 or 4 in your career where it'll probably feel like everything you've worked so hard for has the potential to crumble beneath you. You may have to work long hours. You may have to work away from home. You may have to work away from family. You may have a boss that irritates the heck out of you. You may manage a team that would not have been your first round draft picks. How you respond to any circumstance at hand is entirely up to you. If you constantly seek out the negative aspects of where you live, you're going to be miserable. If you get laid off like I did last April, you can fold and feel sorry for yourself, or you can exercise the power of positive thinking, create your own reality, dust the dirt off your britches, and figure it out. Don't take work home. Don't take home to work. Assume your role. Be proud of it. Be proud of your work, deliver results with confidence, and always add value. If life gives you lemons, first try to squeeze some oil out of that sucker. and only then, exercise the power of positive thinking. Remember that you're in control. Remember that you have the freedom to create your own reality. Had I not practiced the power of positive thinking through this last very tumultuous year that we all lived through, I wouldn't be standing here tonight with the privilege of speaking with you guys. These are all things inside your circle of influence. So, seniors, I hope that you are as excited about graduating as your parents are about getting you off the payroll. You each are very close to walking the stage and beginning the next chapter in your life. And personally, I'm proud and excited for you. I hope that you remember what I shared regarding a few of the topics inside your circle of influence, like entitlement and networking and the power of positive thinking. Disregard all the topics outside of your control. I hope the principles that have benefited me serve you well as you step out into the real world. Enjoy your next several weeks as undergraduates. Make memories, thank your professors, and go out and make Texas Tech proud. Thank you all and good night.